Hello, I'm Greg Sanders, Group Publisher at QSR Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Why You Should Switch to a Cloud-Based Point of Sale. With the constant evolution of technology, point-of-sale systems need to stay nimble. A modern POS system is expected to do more than process payments. It's a foundational part of enhancing the customer experience, improving business operations, and maximizing revenue. Now, restaurants still using legacy server-based POS systems face steep challenges related to thriving in today's increasingly digital and connected landscape. Moving to a cloud-based POS can appear daunting, but it provides substantial benefits such as improved connectivity, integration, and security, as well as the ability to easily manage multiple locations and access key data wherever and whenever. So in this webinar, we'll hear why now is the time to migrate from legacy POS and get a first-hand look at the immediate and long-term benefits of moving to the cloud. A couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. First, this session is being recorded, and we will let you know when the recording is available. Second, we will be taking your questions at the end of the program, and you can use the functionality on the webinar console to submit a question at any time. So now to begin, joining us today are Chris Liebier, Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer at Revel Systems, and Garrett Fadden, Senior Director, Retail IT Systems at Focus Brands. I'll turn it over to Chris Liebier to get started.
Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us, especially with everything that's going on as a distraction right now. Appreciate your time and attention and look forward to the next 45 minutes or so with everyone. Let me give you a quick overview of Revel Systems. We were the first native cloud tablet point-of-sale solution in the space. We call ourselves kind of 10 years mature. We're kind of right at that 10-year mark. We serve multiple markets, but specifically quick service, table service restaurants, and then specialty retail. Those are the main zones for our business. And probably the thing that might surprise you the most about us, we serve all different size of businesses, but we actually have hundreds of customers that are significant size chains of 20, 50, 100, even over 1,000 sites in a single chain. And I think a lot of folks don't know that cloud-based solutions are now sophisticated and scalable enough to be in that quote-unquote enterprise space. And that is really our bread and butter. Cloud is no longer just about sort of a terminal like a Square solution in a one-site, small type of shop. They are now ready for prime time. So that is who Revel Systems is, and I'll turn it over to Garrett to tell you just a little bit about Focus, and then we'll dive into the cloud discussion.
Thanks, Chris, and hello, everybody. Focus Brands is the owner and franchisor for 7 fairly, very reputable brands. In the quick serve snack brand size of business, we have Carvel, Cinnabon, Auntie Anne's, Moe's Southwest Grill, McAllister's Deli, Schlotzsky's, and most recently acquired was Jamba Juice, and now rebranded as Jamba. We act in a franchise business model based out of Atlanta, and we do all of the shared service technical support here out of our global headquarters, and that's what my team is responsible for in the retail technology space.
Awesome. So Garrett has got a lot of live experience every day with solutions from many different providers, both old and new. So you'll have great perspective. All right, so let's go through some of the characteristics of a cloud-based solution. You kind of talk about what's different in them versus legacy solutions and where the value really comes in. I think some areas are kind of obvious and some are not so obvious, and so hopefully we tell you a few new things today. So first of all, in terms of flexibility, this is probably, if Garrett and I were building this presentation, Garrett said this is really the number one thing in terms of his experience with getting to a cloud solution that matters. And the main reason that flexibility comes in a cloud solution is that you really can adjust to new things going on in the market more quickly because all the software and all the data is in one place. And we all know today that the landscape is changing faster than ever. Consumers are demanding new things all the time. And, whereas 10 or 15 years ago, you could run really the same application, in your merchant site for 5 or 10 years before you had to upgrade it. Now, year in and year out, if not quarter in, quarter out, you got a new program you got to run. You want to bring in a new delivery provider. You got a different thing that you want to do. And these cloud solutions allow you to really do integrations with third parties very quickly and cut new programs in very fast. In fact, we recently just did a situation where we are bringing a new brand onto our product, and we put 9 integrations onto a solution in just a couple of month time frame that might normally have taken in a legacy solution 6, 9, 12, 18 months to do. And that's just because of the ease of the architecture, the access to the solution, and how the cloud solutions are built. They're just far superior, easier to upgrade, update, and patch. And so your cycle time on flexibility is much improved. And Garrett, maybe you can give us some examples from your business of this.
Absolutely. I think that you nailed it on the head. With the architecture of a cloud-based solution and having the data and all of the underlying architecture centralized, it allows for moving quickly, and that's the biggest thing, being able to shift and pivot as the business needs change, or as something comes down the pipe as a new trend in the marketplace, being able to get with a good partner and put out releases quickly and not have to put a lot of dollars and resources into putting upgrades out, which largely becomes a prerequisite for any other project in other systems that I've worked with throughout my career. Talking about the day-to-day management of a cloud-based solution, one of the things that I love about it is being able to make changes very quickly from a data management perspective, but also being able to make those changes from anywhere. We've had several instances in our environment where we've had to make changes, and the resources on my team that are responsible for those changes weren't necessarily in front of their computer, but they were able to make those changes quickly just from their cell phone by going into the mobile application, make the updates that were needed, direct the users on the other end on how to make those changes take effect into the point of sale system. And refreshing the point of sale is a matter of seconds, where in other systems it may take several minutes, and you might have a negative guest impact just by the nature of fixing a problem. So I think speed is of the essence here. Being able to have 3 releases or more put out in one single year means that any roadmap items that come out of the business or client base can be implemented at a much more high rate of speed. And all that does is help with the profitability and the success of the business that we're trying to support. And I think that's something that gets forgotten, is that in IT, we're here to support the business, not the other way around. So
and we all know, right, we live in a world where speed is almost everything, right?
Absolutely.
Right, and we also all have been there, including myself, but in prior generations of our technology, you had to plan a 6-month rollout period for every change you wanted to make. So that delta in terms of speed is
absolutely
enormous.
And half the time you find out halfway down the path that, we're going to have to go to a different version, and now we're going to have to start that 6 months over.
Reset the clock. You also, when you do the 6 months, you got to be perfect at the beginning of it. Otherwise, you don't have no room to adjust. So, all right. So let's move on from flexibility. Maybe we should have called that speed. That might actually be the salient point there. Let's talk about usability for a second. Kind of a different topic. Part of this is related to the cloud, and part of it is just related, I'd say, to more modern solutions. But these modern user interfaces, which, really are generally cloud-based types of systems, they reduce employee training time. And listen, there was a lot of work done on the UI in the last generations of solutions. They were decent. The problem is those UIs were unique to the POS world. So somebody comes in and begins to work in a complicated restaurant. It doesn't matter how good the human factors people worked on it. It was brand new to somebody. So they had to practice it and see how it worked and maybe go through a training class or whatever. And training was measured in probably hours, sometimes a couple of days if it was a manager who needed to know more about the system. But what you find with the modern cloud solutions that are running on user interfaces that are similar to everything else that consumers use, whether it's their phone or their iPad or their PC, what you find is, and in our case at Revel, by the way, we're Apple-based, we follow the Apple standard. Guess what? You almost don't have to train anybody at all because everybody knows how to pick up a new phone and somehow manage. Nobody goes through any training time. Just in a few minutes, you kind of get the feel, for the swiping and whatever. And if it's a similar experience to things you've done before, it's a natural experience. So there's just a huge sort of, it's an almost default benefit because you're using UIs that are similar to what everybody experiences in the rest of society. We have many of our customers tell us that literally they don't do training, right? I mean, they might have to teach them a few things about the business or the operation, but the concept of interfacing with the technology is pretty natural, and so that's pretty helpful. The other thing is, from a support standpoint, the technology is just simpler. The fact, again, that it's all in one place and accessible is great. It can be seen by support. And the problems that people run into in terms of getting stuck somewhere in the system kind of go away with this better user interface. And the last thing I want to say before I ask Garrett to share some examples in this area is I realized when we put this picture on the screen that one of the things that we believe has been a challenge over the last couple of years is folks who've had complicated, sophisticated, fully featured, robust solutions in the past, look at this thing on the counter and go, wow, that looks really, it's kind of sleek, it's a little bit sexy, whatever, but by its nature, it almost looks simple. Well, I just want to make sure everybody understands it is simpler to interface with, it is a cleaner look and a smaller footprint, but it has just as much sophistication behind the scenes, enterprise capabilities, inventory, the whole 9 yards. These systems didn't have that 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago when they first started out, but now that we're 10 years into this, these systems have just as much sophistication as the legacy solutions, even though on the surface they look like something, more slight than that. So that's just an FYI to the team. So tell us about your usability experience, Garrett.
So you touched on a lot of things there, Chris, and I agree with everything you said, and going a little bit deeper on a couple of the things, particularly the training of the employees in the restaurants or the snack brand store locations. Like you said, training them becomes almost a non-existent need, which means that they can almost spend more time training on the actual business or running the business or how to control costs and make the business more profitable. It's amazing the kind of the words that come out of some of the team members' mouths in the restaurants because they're not referring to the point of sale as the register or the computer system anymore. They're looking at it as, oh, I got to go ring this up on the Revel app, right? It's more of an application. They're familiar with it. They know the look and feel. They know how it's designed to be used. From that perspective, it's easier for them to troubleshoot themselves as well. Should they run into an issue, which is few and far between, but also it's a very versatile platform, and it's one of the beautiful things about a cloud-based solution is that you don't necessarily need all of this customized hardware for new capabilities in ordering channels, meaning I can use the same device for a point of sale for a cashier, but also for a mobile order taker in a drive-through or out there in kind of the hallways in the malls, or use it as a kiosk for a guest-facing order entry device, all from the same configuration, all from the same device, not purchasing new hardware and making large investments in new things. So it's pretty amazing how usable the solutions really can be. And touching on the sleek look and feel, it's usable from a guest perspective as well, because we have capabilities turned on for for digital tipping or for loyalty, where it almost becomes a self-service, and the guests are familiar with how to use that technology as well. So it makes a lot of the whole training team members, training the guests, selfishly from my perspective, training my support staff, a lot easier to do, which makes everybody's experience much better, and really focusing on servicing the guest and the business as opposed to focusing on the technology just being a tool that you can rely on.
Yeah. Hey, Garrett, without pinning you down to a number like 29.3%, but can you share some relativism in terms of, since you do have many brands and they're all fairly large, what's the difference in support energy that it takes from a cloud solution to a brand that's on an older generation solution?
Obviously, depending on what's going on in the business at that point in time, we've averaged about a 3-to-1 support volume drop, switching to cloud-based solutions, which is amazing. And it's largely just based on some of the things we just touched on, that we have technology that is, naturally more familiar to our team members, but also our support staff, which means supporting it becomes less of a very specialized capability and less niche as far as your education or experience.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, great. That's great to hear. And I wanted people to hear that because I think you could talk about it all and people think, oh, it's 10% better. It's not 10. We're talking magnitudes better, not 10% better, which...
And again, it's relative to what might be going on. Because you think about things like success rate of promotion launches and things like that. And, obviously in the point of sale world, there's always something that comes up on day of go live. But being able to quickly remediate that, circling back to the flexibility of the system, also does a great deal to keep the support volume down, probably in the most critical times.
And that's you're tying back to the first topic, the speed/flexibility, but in a legacy solution, if something's wrong, it could take you months to correct the wrong. If something's wrong in the cloud solution and you can fix it in an hour, you don't have to deal with it over and over. So, yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. I get stuck there for too long. Let's talk about multi-location management, or you might call this enterprise management capability, but we're talking here about, you've got 200 or 500 or 1,000 sites, and you're managing pricing. You're managing pricing across regions. What if you're trying to, you're a retailer and you want to see, you're out of a certain kind of inventory, you want to see if another site has it, et cetera. In a legacy solution where even if there was a centralized component, a lot of the data was contained within a store, transactions were contained within a store, whether it was on a server, some other architecture. A store might have to check with another, literally make a call to another store to see what's happening or to sync prices. Well, in a cloud solution, you guys, we all know what a cloud is, but you just have to visualize this. If you have 200 stores, from a software and data standpoint, you don't have 200 stores. They're all in the same place. They're all in the same cloud. You really have one enterprise. It's a different concept, right? So then when you're managing the enterprise and it's all right in front of you, nobody has to go somewhere else to see. There's no syncing because it is all in the same place in the first place. So it's just a completely different, kind of feel in terms of the challenges of where the technology could break, where there might be time lag. Everybody knows, if anybody, for those of you that are more technical on the phone, the whole concept of syncing databases and that kind of stuff has forever been a horrendous problem, because even though you can write the code to do that, if at any point it hiccups, if there's network, you get into all sorts of messy backup cases and all that. It goes away with the cloud. Either something happens in this one cloud instance or it doesn't. In the cloud, with the technology we have today, thank you to Amazon and Google and Microsoft and Crew, you have a completely redundant version. The uptime in the cloud is 5 nines. We have almost no downtime issues. The systems can run locally themselves even when they're disconnected. And so that is no longer an issue. And the risk of that cloud going away, we've never seen it, or we have 0 instances of that, so that's not an issue. And then having it all in one place means that these configuration issues, managing menus, managing pricing, checking for inventory, it's totally scalable, and it doesn't matter whether it's 2 sites or 2,000 sites. It works the same way. So,
yeah, you're exactly right, Chris. It's one of the favorite things about the cloud-based solution is we have a full solution that all the data is centralized, like we talked about, but you can't stress enough the importance of that and doing away with the modularized approach of importing data from one section of the solution to another section of the solution. It's really, like you say, one big cloud of configuration and data that's segregated or segmented in a way that you have the ability to control. So I control access for the support staff and what they're able to do and what support they're able to give. And then for the field users, what sites they can see. And mind you, they can see that information wherever they want to from any device almost. But also the segmentation of the sites from a configuration perspective, which from my selfish point of view is very important because we have a concept of co-branding. So we have multiple brands menus in one instance, and we can slice and dice those menus to individual locations and have one store have a combination of brands menus without adding any additional level of effort or resources or configuration time. It's really just turn this brand's menu on and turn this other brand's menu on, and we can slice it and dice it any which way we want. It makes it easier for users to access their data, and it makes it easier to do analysis. And again, circle back to what we're here for is business, to make business decisions based on the data and not have to make assumptions based on where the source of the data actually is and whether that data ties out, which is a common challenge that I've seen throughout my career as well.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. All right, let's go to the next one. Data access. I think this is one of the most obvious things. I think this is one of the things most people, when they think of a cloud system, they go, oh, I get how it's going to help me with that, so I'll probably spend maybe one of the least amount of time on it. But obviously, it's all sitting in the cloud, which means it's on the internet. It's all in one place, which means if you want to look at this information, it doesn't matter whether it's on your phone, it doesn't matter whether you're at home, it doesn't matter whether you're in Antarctica. You can get on the internet and you can access these applications. It's all there. You can make changes on your back office. You can get alerts about what's going on in the store, respond to them. You can change your labor. So I think the concept, everybody gets. I think the actual power of it, you probably don't appreciate it until you really realize now how much more interactive a manager can be, in a store situation, even though they don't have to be there a high percentage of the time. And we know in this, tight labor market, this expensive, increasing cost of labor market, often managers are managing multiple stores or they're running around doing different things. And really their best value to the business in any case is probably interacting with customers, building relationships, making the operations sing. And they really need the technology just to tell them when something's off so they can adjust it. And in this kind of model, you give them an alert, you'll let them have access to adjust it. And the whole concept, like I certainly remember from my earlier days in the retail tech industry, sitting in the quote unquote, the term's still used, like the back office of the site, and there'd be the screen and there'd be stacks of paper all over and the schedules on the wall, and it's just a huge mess. And the manager, for a third of every day would be buried in there, going through crap. And that just, we need to get rid of that model, right? That needs to go away. More things that need to happen automatically. And then when a manager does, when the system senses that something is off or the manager wants to make an adjustment from their own gut, wow, it wasn't supposed to rain today, it's starting to rain, I want to change my schedules for later in the day. And right now they're at breakfast, they're in a coffee shop, they need to be able to do it, right? So that's the kind of thing this enables.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny when you think about this. It's so simple, but it's such a big thing. When we talk about the access to data from anywhere, the data's just there. You just have the data wherever you are, whatever device you're looking at. It, again, doesn't matter what the source of that data is or what business capability is driving that data. You have access to that data because it's all centralized in that cloud. And it's a very, very powerful thing. I mean, you used some examples of sitting in the coffee shop and being able to make it actionable. I've used the example of having team members do configurations from anywhere because they had access to do that configuration, which in a way is access to data. But it again drives back to the ability to manage the business, make business decisions on the fly in the moment when they can be impactful, not looking at them in the back office the next morning and saying, okay, next time this happens, try to do this.
Yeah, I'm going to fix it for next week.
Right, exactly. Based on some assumptions we're making, based on looking at the numbers, right? It's, hey, this is happening right now. We can make an impact right now that'll help our business, hopefully produce a better guest experience or a better team member experience, whatever the situation is. But, the access to data is very powerful, and you really just can't undersell that. I mean, it's very important.
Yeah, good. All right, so I think this is the most understood one, but maybe the most underestimated benefit, Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'll add on that there's not an additional product necessarily. There's just, you have the access to the data. You don't have to do anything special necessarily, which is a unique thing with this technology.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap it all up talking about everybody's favorite topic, right? It shouldn't be about the cost. It should be about the value, but everybody does care about the cost. At the end of the day, we all know how the tech curve goes, except for our phones, which seem to get more expensive every generation. A lot of other technology, the costs keep coming down as we go to more commoditized solutions. So the same is true with the cloud, especially when it's a tablet solution. Obviously, these tablets are common commodities. They're much cheaper than proprietary hardware. They are very robust. That question gets asked all the time. Well, is this going to break faster than a proprietary system or something else? I will tell you our return rate on tablets is extremely low. These things are actually quite reliable. I always use the example that, I don't know about you, but, I've got kids riding around the back of the car and iPads on the floor, and they don't break. These things get beat up all the time. These things will last years and years, and they're a fraction of the cost of the other items. So our customer base does not see a problem with that. So the hardware itself is cheaper. The installation of this more lean and mean solution is easier. The software is coming out of the cloud. It's a footprint. And once you got it right once, you just get to keep using that again. You don't have moving parts. You don't have servers. Projects are just easier to implement. And then you're on a SaaS software model, which includes support fees and everything as well. So, I don't know that anybody's done the perfect job, including us. And we've tried, actually, but there's just so many variables to say what is the true difference in TCO between, say, a current modern cloud solution and the last generation solution for merchants. But again, I think the biggest point is just like when Garrett talked about support earlier, it's not 10% better. Whatever the number is, it's 2x or 3x or 2.4 or 3.8. It is significant. So there is a step function change here. Because the ease of use, the consistency of this whole solution, and the actual price point of the items themselves are lower right from the get-go. And then, you have the even other very tangible part of everything around cost is labor. Labor is getting more expensive than ever, and everything we've talked about says you're using less labor on this solution. So that's just, that piles on. That might move the TCO to 4+X better. But I think that's the kind of zone you're talking about. So, what do you think, Garrett?
I think the cost is a very interesting topic to me. Coming from some legacy solutions where the cost of doing updates or lifecycle management might be kind of an intimidating endeavor for franchisees and something that if they don't absolutely have to do it, they may not put their dollars into that investment at that point in time. If it ain't broke, don't fix it type of mentality. And then what happens is it becomes much more expensive to fix it down the road when it is broke. And I see this as an opportunity to kind of change that mindset. First of all, the upfront cost of the hardware is more affordable than some legacy systems right out of the gate. So that takes away some of the worry and anxiety of staying up to date. Once it's run its course, once we've gotten 5 or 6 years out of an iPad and it is time to refresh that, it's not as material or significant of an investment at that time, and there's less worry about it, which leads to maybe people doing upgrades more often, staying current, and then being able to move their business forward with some of their strategic initiatives a lot faster because they have the latest and greatest technology all the time.
Aren't trying to hang on for 10-year life cycles.
Exactly, or running its course even longer than that.
Or even longer,
in some cases. And then when you look at circling back to the way you upgrade the actual application, sometimes you have strategic initiatives that will require doing updates to the point-of-sale system. If it's a third-party integration for online ordering or online catering or loyalty or whatever other strategic partnership that exists to drive the business forward, might require some work in the point of sale, and being able to do that quickly and like we talked about earlier, not make that a 6-9 month endeavor that's going to have thousands and thousands of dollars tied to it to just accomplish that as a prerequisite to accomplish what you set out to do in the first place. You can't say enough about the time and cost savings and what that does to actually hitting your mark and implementing the product that you're trying to through that project on time when it's going to have the biggest impact on the business.
Yeah, great.
It's almost an exponential domino effect type thing.
That's a good way to think of domino effect, right? And then you got the speed factor too. So do you think that it is a sort of a piling on kind of situation? So obviously, you've all heard we're big fans, right, of the cloud. And I think that I think we're honest with ourselves though as well. If you would ask me, 3, 4, 5 years ago, where do we stand with this? Is it ready for 20, 200, 2,000 site change? We might not have quite crossed that chasm, but we have crossed that boundary now, ready for prime time, fully sophisticated solutions with lots of benefits, and it's time to move from the old to the new. So we'll turn it back to you, Greg, in questions, and go from there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris and Garrett, for that information. We will turn to questions from the audience now, so go ahead and get those questions in if you have not yet. So the first question we have is, do cloud systems provide benefits for restaurants of all sizes? Obviously, in Garrett's case, we've talked about larger operations, but what about something that's maybe not quite so big?
Yeah, I'll start, and then Garrett can pile on. I think it provides benefits for everybody. The TCO factor is there for everybody. Actually, a lot of smaller businesses, whether it's a small chain or just one big site or whatever, they have even some of these problems in more exaggeration in terms of cost of labor. They can't be at the site all the time. So I think it applies pretty much across the board. I don't think it's like one site gains more or less. And Garrett's brands are actually very different sizes and profiles, so you can also make
absolutely. I agree. I think regardless of the size of the business or the organization, there's value to be had. There's always efficiencies and cost savings to be gained, no matter what the size of your business is. In fact, smaller businesses may not have as much capital to invest in, some of the more robust systems in the previous mindset. So looking at a robust system that's more affordable in a variety of ways and can cut down the installation time and can be more affordable it doesn't really matter the size of the business that you're looking at. In fact, I think the bigger the business, the more exponential the savings could be, obviously, but benefits either way all around.
Yep.
All right. Another question. So what happens if the internet goes down?
That's a
Especially
very
if it's
good
a busy
question.
time of business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously with a cloud-based point of sale, there's a dependency on internet. That's not to say that the system will not work without internet. It will function offline, and once the internet is restored, the sales will sync back to the cloud database. There's not, you know, a whole lot of manual effort that's needed in order to accomplish that. It's one of those things that just happens, and then there's not, you know, trying to reconcile different pieces of data from different point-of-sale terminals. There's not the element of having to take action to get the point-of-sale into a mode of being able to take sales offline. But certainly an important factor, the internet with the cloud solution.
Yeah, and I'll just pile on there. Actually, this is one of the reasons 3 or 4 years ago as well, this was just getting matured. What you'd call offline mode, but you literally can cut the internet now. You can run all day. So the software itself does get loaded down to the terminal from the cloud, and it can self-sustain within its local network, and then the data does go back up afterwards. So, and as I said earlier, the technology of syncing has always been a difficult thing. That's the one time you do have to sync is when the internet goes down, but there's no downtime in the restaurant. And it works just like legacy systems do in terms of payments. If you can't get to the internet, you either have to decide, you know, to not take payments, you know, of credit cards, or to do offline transactions, which most people choose to do. So that technology is pretty similar, but the internet itself is not a dependency for the solution to work, and our customers really have, you know, very few to no interruptions in actual service.
Yeah, and just to echo that and piggyback just a little bit, the time savings of having to get the point of sale into an offline mode that you gain is beneficial for not only the staff in the restaurant, the guests, but also the support staff as well. And then it does away with the reconciliation, just to reiterate that.
All right, another question that has come in. Do you anticipate the current major legacy vendors making technology changes to move towards cloud-based solutions?
Well, this is Chris. Of course, we're big fans of the cloud, so I don't think there's any doubt that all solutions will move in this direction. I think the question is who gets where when. I think one thing that's important here to note is, so I think every legacy provider will either move towards a cloud solution. Some of them are already, like they will take their current solution and put some kind of wrapper on it that puts it in the cloud, or they'll put the front end in the cloud. I think you do have to be careful. What I'm going to call the modern grouping of cloud companies, which Rebel is in, and there's several others, there are some companies that are completely native cloud, and you got to understand, if you really have a full, written from the ground up cloud-based solution, or if you have a legacy solution or parts of a legacy solution that has either been wrapped or married with other pieces, that's probably, I'm not saying they won't work. I'm not saying actually it's not an improvement over the full legacy solution. I'm just saying it's not the same as a full native cloud solution. And I think the problem for the legacy providers, and by the way, I've been a part of some of those companies, is because they have, you know, a history and all the legacy solutions to support over the years, they don't often have the luxury to start from the ground up and write something from scratch. It took us, you know, 5+ years to get into the market heavily, and 7, 8+ years to get to the full sophisticated enterprise cloud solution. And that's difficult for them to do because they're trying to service both their existing market and the new one. So they tend to move there more incrementally, which is not the same. And then often what they sometimes do is they'll end up buying one of the cloud solutions so that they get the benefit of a true native cloud solution. So if I had to project, each of them is probably working on some partial cloudifying of what they have, And each of them is probably thinking of, how do I eventually get maybe to a native solution, whether that's buy, build, or, some other clever angle.
Yeah, I think without a doubt, everybody will be cloud-based at some point in the future, or some flavor of cloud, like you mentioned. I think the important thing there is how to get the client base and the customers migrated over to the new solution from the legacy solution. Or that a lot of organizations will have infrastructure built around, because that's one of the biggest things about moving inherently from one type of architecture to a new type of architecture within the same solution is, what about all the stuff that I've done around the solution I have right now to support my business, and how do we...
And that model may not work in the cloud, right? That may fundamentally just be in a different... You can't make a 60 Cadillac work with an electric car. They don't go together, right? At some point, you got to make a cutover. So
exactly. Yeah. So I think that's an important piece to that topic.
All right, we are in the midst of our Q&A session. Just a reminder to get those questions in, just use the submit a question functionality that's right there on your webinar console. We'll move to the next one now. So can you talk a little bit about what functions are most beneficial for growing businesses?
Why don't you take that, Garrett? You got a better,
Yeah, I think that it depends on, in what ways we're talking about growth, right? Are we talking about growing sales and the four walls and increasing comp sales, or are we talking about growing the business as far as number of units? I think that, some of the stuff that we've already talked about, the flexibility and the cost savings, are a couple of the biggest things that are beneficial from a cloud-based solution perspective to ease the pain or burden of growing to begin with. But I think just the access to data as a whole to make more intelligent business decisions, to make sure that we're growing the business in the right way or in the right areas based on empirical data and not based on, emotions or secondhand information or red books or whatever it is. I think it's really about access to data in the moment, and using that in an appropriate way that you have the access to do because of the cloud.
Yeah. And I think all the longer term modern cloud providers have all those core modules that you need, inventory, labor management, the full operational suite, all the reporting, all that stuff is there at this point in time. This is not, this is not a square register that largely rings people up. This is a full front-end, back-end, enterprise, price management solution.
And one of the things that we haven't talked a whole lot about is that API architecture to make integrations easier. If there is an inherent third-party use, say, for inventory that the population is already using, there is an opportunity to more easily build an integration into the point of sale and get PLS data than with some of the legacy solutions. So it really is a central hub of data that can be used as more of a business tool as opposed to a cash register system.
All right. I think we have time for a couple more. So here's actually a three-parter from an attendee, and this is, I think, very specific to the Revel solution. But the question is, how much is it? Does it do inventory? And does it schedule appointments?
Okay, it definitely does inventory. It schedules appointments to some extent. If you want, depends what kind of business you're in, but if it's a sophisticated scheduler, then you've got to use a third party to do that. If you're trying to manage tons of people in a setting with 14 people doing massages and everything else, that's a standalone type of thing. And then how much is it? Call and check, but it's hard to give you just a pat answer. I will give you, though, just a couple general ideas, right? I mean, you can look at the hardware and you know what the price of an iPad is, and by the way, it's pretty much passed through. These companies, not only Revel, but all companies that are selling tablets, they sell them at pretty much what you buy a tablet for. So you guys can figure that out. So you kind of know what your starting point is if you got a tablet and then you're using another smaller tablet for CDF. The price of a printer and a cash drawer are the same as they are everywhere. So you get that part of it. From a software standpoint, on a per terminal basis, think of prices that range from sort of $50 to $125 each. But most stores, I'll just use the general concept of an average size store, most of them are paying SaaS fees that are in the $250, $300 range per month. If you're a smaller one, it could be substantially less. If you're a much bigger one, it could be somewhat more. But that's kind of the ongoing cost for the software, and there's no big upfront cost. So you can kind of identify the price of the hardware yourself, and then you're looking at, a few $100s a month for software on an ongoing basis, and that's a pretty sleek entry, into this without a ton of upfront spend.
All right, let's close with a question that asks the two of you to look into your crystal ball, and I'd like both of you to weigh in on this if you would. It is, do you predict the future will be the tablet POS solution, and how about tablet POS for big businesses?
Yeah, I would say yes. The answer is yes. The future will be a tablet-based point-of-sale solution, cloud-based point-of-sale solution for a variety of reasons, largely the things that we've talked about here today, but mostly because of cost and the ease of use and the ease of access to the actual hardware, but also because of the architecture being more robust, more stable, and more reliable as far as the integrity of the data and the access to the data. All things that are very important to business, no matter what size of a business we're talking about, no matter what industry we're talking about. We're talking about making money, and we're talking about making money based on business decisions, and that's what I see as the future. It's definitely going this direction.
Yeah, and I'll echo that and add a couple specifics, I guess. Listen, back up in all of our society, where's everything moving? Right? Everything's moving digital. Everything is moving into the cloud. Everything is moving into sort of mobility, which is based on the cloud and the access. So all businesses will follow that same model, right? Because that's where the cost reductions are, efficiency, stability. That's just the model that we're operating under. So I don't think there's any doubt that we're fully headed in that direction. And as far as big businesses, absolutely. The reason, I assume the person is asking with regards to, let's say, McDonald's versus somebody else, or it could be, if it's a big business, just bigger footprint businesses. In either case, whether it's a large chain like McDonald's or whether it's, something not such a big business but a different footprint, in both cases, they will eventually get there. The reason they're last, or not yet, we haven't seen that, is because of what Garrett said about 5 or 10 minutes ago. Those McDonald's is already plugged in to a whole bunch of other systems that power their universe, right? That they've built corporately, custom applications, whether it's how they do their supply chain or, some special labor management secret sauce that they've got. And so they deployed a generation of POS and then put a lot of other things around it, that because they have the most sophisticated full solution built out, they'll be one of the last to go because they have to rebuild that in a new place. But they certainly aren't going to be running that in the year 2030. I mean, the technology in the core point of sale won't be available, will be too expensive, will be breaking, and won't any longer be even common for people to interact with. So absolutely they will move there, but those bigger, more sophisticated businesses are the last movers, and this was true in the last generation of retail technology. The one before that, they'll be the last ones to move on because they've got to rebuild out their entire solution set.
Absolutely. I think you touched on something very important there. And first, it goes without saying, but changing point of sale systems is a huge decision. It's something that takes a lot of thought, a lot of planning, but once you make the decision to change your point of sale, because it's at the core of your business, you want to do it fast. So you're not supporting two systems or multiple systems for an extended period of time. And what I will say is I've done a lot of point of sale rollouts in my time. I've been a POS installer for several years and worked at all levels of kind of the retail IT industry. And, you know, rolling out the cloud-based point of sale solution into one of our brands was the largest point of sale rollout by number of sites in the shortest amount of time that I've ever been involved with. We're talking about 1,000 or more sites in about 4 months. So, yeah, a lot of planning and a lot of infrastructural considerations up front, but the ability to move fast is one reason, circling back to the original question, that everybody will be here at some point in time. Not the only reason, obviously, but the one main reason is that once you get there, you can do it.
All right, that is all the time we have today. Many thanks to Revel Systems for making this program possible, to our audience for attending, and of course to our panelists, Chris and Garrett, for sharing their considerable insight. The program was recorded, and we'll send you an email letting you know when that recording is available. Thanks again, and have a great day.
Thank you.